The common ratio in a geometric sequence is 3/2, and the fifth term is 1. Find the first three terms. Again, we're going to rely on the formula for the nth term of a geometric sequence. A sub n equals a times r to the n minus 1. We're told that the common ratio is 3/2, so we can be a little bit more specific here. A sub n equals a times 3/2 to the n minus 1. But we're not told what the first term is. We're only told what the fifth term is. However, this is enough information to figure out what the first term is going to be. We're going to look at a sub 5, the fifth term. That's going to be a times 3/2 to the 5 minus 1 power. Now, 5 minus 1 is 4, so this is going to be a times 3/2 to the 4th power. And we're told specifically that the fifth term is equal to 1. So we can set this equal to 1, and then we have an equation with only one variable, a, so we can solve for a. First, I'm going to evaluate 3/2 to the 4th power. If we distribute that 4 to the numerator and denominator, 3 to the 4th is 81, 2 to the 4th is 16. So we've got a times 81 over 16 equals 1. To get a alone, notice that a is being multiplied by 81/16. The opposite of multiplying something by 81/16 is dividing it by 81/16. And we know that if we take something and divide it by a fraction, it's the same as taking that and multiplying by the reciprocal. So to get rid of the 81/16, what we can do is we can multiply both sides by 16 over 81. If we do that, the 81s and the 16s cancel, leaving the a ball by itself. And then on the right, 1 times anything is itself, so we get 16 over 81. Once we know the value of a, we can plug it in up here, and we can get a more specific formula for the nth term. A sub n equals 16/81 times 3/2 to the n minus 1. Once we have this formula for the nth term, we can use it to figure out the first three terms. So we can use this to figure out a sub 1, a sub 2, and a sub 3. Now, actually, we don't need this formula for the first term, a sub 1, because when we figured out what a was, remember that a stands for the first term. So in this case, the first term is just going to be 16 over 81. Now, for the second term, we can use this formula, 16 over 81 times 3/2 to the 2 minus 1 power. Of course, 2 minus 1 is 1, and anything to the first power is itself. So this is 16 over 81 times 3/2. If we cross cancel, the 3 can be reduced amongst the 81. When we divide those both by 3, we get 1 and 27. 16 and 2 are both divisible by 2. When we reduce by 2, we get 8 and 1. And so once we've done this cross cancellation, we can see that we're left with 8/27. So that is the second term. And then for the third term, we just need to plug in n equals 3. So 16 over 81 times 3/2 to the 3 minus 1. That's going to be 16 over 81 times 3/2 squared. We know that 3/2 squared is 3/2 times 3/2, which is 9/4. And again, we've got a product of fractions where we can cross cancel. 9/81 reduces to 1/9. 16/4 reduces to 4 over 1. And when we go through and multiply across, we get 4/9. So the first three terms here are going to be 16/81, 8/27, and 4/9. And that is our final answer.